I was 19, right out of high school, and did not necessarily have any college credits to get any rank other than E1 or private E1. I think it goes private E1, and then E2, you get a little chevron, and then after E2, you become a E3 or a private first class. At any rate, I joined the Army at the age of 19 and came in as an E1. I did 6 years and went to boot camp, or as they call it, basic training in Fort Benning, Georgia. They shipped or they flew us from LA to I think it was Fort Jackson first. So Fort Jackson was the reception center, and soon after, I think it was 2 days later, they flew us or bused us to Fort Benning, Georgia, where I stayed there for the remaining of my training. So after basic training, they show you the basic soldiering way, and after that, they send you to what they call AIT. I believe AIT is just your advanced. For us, at least, it was our advanced infantry training. Everybody in basic training got the basics of being a soldier, and after that, you moved on to your specific job training. Mine was infantry, so I did a lot more on infantry training, and it was pretty much the same place. Soon after, I think that was right about December, January, and I remember during training itself, it was very, very hard. It was not something that I was used to. Being from LA, I was used to, when somebody asks you to sit down, you find a chair and you sit down. Well, in the Army, or at least in training, when they ask you to sit down, you sit down, the dirt, you sit down on the grass. So, that's something that I was not necessarily used to. But it was fun. You had to pretty much block off, I guess, the hardship because it was really tough. So I prepared myself by just blocking off a lot of things and just wandering off. I was stationed in Fort Ord, Monterey, California. It was a light infantry division. Basically, that meant that at any given time, we could be called upon to deploy and either go to war or whatnot. We were always put on high alert, and there were several levels of alert. You could be on alert status, or in 3 hours you have to deploy, which means that if we were in that status, we had to stay in our barracks and we couldn't necessarily leave. There were 6 hours, I think, and 12 hours and 24 hours. So at least, with a 12-hour status, you'll be able to leave, go out of town or whatnot, as long as you keep in touch. When I was in, we were not necessarily at war. So we did a lot of training. And of course, training where we simulated battles, war, and all that good stuff. I like doing that. I like being out in the woods, I guess, and doing maneuvers. We're in, especially when we have combined training with the Air Force. You see a lot of planes, just simulating war. back when I was in, the only way to get it or stay in touch with family, because we didn't have cell phones back then yet, was basically through payphones. And I remember, buying a roll of quarters, uh, because every few minutes, you'll have to deposit quarters into the phone, and to keep the conversation going. And that's basically how I stayed in touch with family. Food was okay. I was pretty impressed the first couple of days at Fort Jackson. I mean, we had steaks, we had shrimp. Then, of course, it got really, really, really basic when regular regular army. We had hamburgers. We always had salads. Breakfast was always good. We had eggs, scrambled. We also had what they call SOS. Basically, it's shredded beef, creamed beef, and normally you put that on toast. I like it in my eggs, but food was okay. We did have a tendency to eat out often, just because, as much as we could, just because, it got old. When we were in maneuvers, we would have what we call, at first we had the C rations. So that's how old I am. Basically, you get a box, and in the box you have several cans. You have your main entree. You may even have biscuits. You might have a chocolate bar, sometimes pound cake. The entree was like sausage and beans, beef stew, spaghetti, something that they could store for years and years and years. Supplies. Well, we did have plenty of supplies. I mean, we had what we call the Post Exchange, or PX, and it's basically a regular grocery store. We also had that overseas. I was stationed in Korea. In Korea, you had a small version of a Post Exchange, or PX, and you pretty much could buy anything you needed. They had magazines, they had books, they had electronics, they had food items, from the States, and we had plenty of supplies. At times, especially in Korea, when we did maneuvers, we would have the locals, what we call mama-san, who we call mama-san, go up and bring us food and cook us ramen, up there in the boonies, and that was actually fun. Awards, aside from the basic awards, I did go to a what they call NCO Academy, or Primary Leadership Academy, and I was in Fort Worth. I think it was 30 days. That was, I think, right after I got promoted to sergeant. So if you inspire to become a non-commissioned officer like I did, you would have to go through that school. I have not attended a reunion just yet. However, I am friends with a few of the folks that I was in our, not necessarily squad, but platoon with. So I'm still friends with them. My service affected me in a big way. I'll give you an example. I was just at the VA hospital this morning, and from what I understand, at least I have that, until the day that I die. So our government takes care of our veterans, which is good. I know there was a time wherein, there were situations, negative situations, but I think it's gotten better. It also helped me open doors. Sometimes employment, sometimes other stuff, but just being so proud of having served. And I think everybody should serve. The walking around being a veteran, it allows me to be proud of being a citizen of this country and having served. Would I have changed things? No, absolutely not. I would have served again. I would probably want to have served as an officer versus a non commissioned officer, but no, absolutely no regrets. One of my memories is being able to travel when I'm on leave. We were able to go into any Air Force base back then and just sign up for a flight, and we go wherever the Air Force goes. If they have a seat and if it's available, they'll allow you to take that seat and fly with them wherever. So I did that quite a few times. As a matter of fact, when I was in Korea, I did that quite a lot, going to the Philippines. I also went to Hawaii and Guam, doing the same thing.